Christine from the European Startup Association. I'm here with Stuart, who is currently in the UK, and he's one of our members. He was also a speaker of our European Startup Festival, and we're super happy to have him as a member in our association, but also at the interview. But I'll hand over to you, Stuart, to explain a bit more about you, your company, and what you're doing, and maybe also go a bit into why you actually started all of this.
Okay, hi Christine. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the time. I'm Stuart Hartley. I'm the Managing Director and founder of Incremental Consulting. We're a boutique management consultancy company that specializes in two specific areas. We call it business coaching and personal coaching. So we support startups all the way from pre-start, help people inspire them into starting a business, all the way through to supporting personal leaders of startups who have gone on, grown their business, and have got perhaps 50 to 100 staff.
Great, thank you. And why did you start all of this back then? And you thought like, oh, there's something that we need to do. There's some value I can provide. Was there any specific stuff or was it just you have all the knowledge and you want to help people?
Oh gosh, okay. I guess it's quite an interesting story. I've been involved in startup now for the last years, about 20, which makes me feel very old. But I throughout probably about 15 of those, I swore I was never going to start a business. I'm very risk averse, didn't want to do it, felt comfortable being in a job, and then an opportunity came my way to take redundancy, and I thought, why not? Let's go for it. I would love to take the opportunity to finally say I've started a business rather than just telling people how to do it. I wanted to be able to share the fact that I could do it myself too. I guess the other thing is I've got such a passion to helping people, inspiring people, trying to support them to start a journey. And it is a journey, and eventually, hopefully, change their lives.
Yes. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I was exactly the same. I said, oh my God, I would never, ever want to start my own business. It's too much work, and it is.
Yep.
It's too much work, and you always maybe have to worry about stuff and things, and it's too exhausting and stuff. But now I wouldn't change it back.
No, I'm the same. There's so many hats that I think you have to wear, and some of those will feel comfortable. Some of those won't feel very comfortable, but the best place to be is just outside your comfort zone.
Yes, yeah, that is true. It's a scary place, but it's also where the magic happens, like they say, and it is actually true. If you always do the same thing, you always have the same outcome. Something like this. There's a quote like this. So try something new outside of your comfort zone, and you will see something else happen. And yeah, I agree as well that it is a journey. Nothing happens overnight. I don't think there's any overnight successes, even if they're celebrated like one. They actually, in the background, they were working on it for a while. And you had already all the knowledge because you said you're working in the startup scene for 20 years, but 15 of those, you never wanted to start your own business. So you got all the knowledge and saw all the back end, let's say, how it all works, and you help people to do it. But like you said, you weren't doing all of this yourself. So it's nice that you went into that journey and took the leap of faith and jumped into it, and it worked out, and you seem to like it. And yeah, giving great advice to startups.
Yeah, I often say I jumped off a cliff and learned to fly on the way down.
Yes, but most people do. I did as well. And I think it took me 1.5 years to actually get my business running properly, to just do this full time. I started while I had a full-time job. Then I was able to find a part-time job to then build up the business from there, until I then finally was able to do it full-time. So people should not expect to think for things to happen overnight, and be patient.
So, and have resilience as well.
Yes. And a lot of times people struggle a bit with the business model, because a lot of times people want to turn their passion into a business, or they want to make a big impact on something. or they want to make a lot of money, even though making a lot of money is usually not working out for most startups. So it shouldn't be your main reason. The main reason should be, okay, I'm super passionate about something and want to have an impact on society, on environment, whatever that is. But they then struggle to find the right business model. Okay, how can I make this actually a business and not it being just a hobby that takes up all of my time and I can't pay my bills? So do you have a little bit of an overview of what kind of business models are out there or something, and what maybe is trending? I mean, at the moment, everything should be subscription based or something. I don't know. But is the right business model maybe? What's the criteria to choose a business model that fits to you? I don't know if you have any tips around that as well.
I'd probably go back before I perhaps go on to talk about ideal business models. I think the best thing to realize or to understand, for everyone to understand first, is to look at what a business model actually is. Some people will look at it as a business plan. Some people will refer to it as the business model canvas, which is a super useful tool there. We kind of strip it back and we strip it back to four main questions. Who are your customers? So what do they look like? What is the actual product you're selling? How are you going to solve a problem for your customers? And then how are you going to generate revenue? So that's where we would probably start with those four questions. In terms of what's right for you, what's right for what's the best way to look at it? Well, we would probably say two things. I would probably go and identify competition. So to get people to understand what their competitors are doing and try and map their business model. Look at those four questions, those four, the who, the what, the value and the how. And if they can map a competitor's business model, they may find a business model for themselves out of it. The thing that we try and get people to do as a bit more advanced of that is to look at other things around the industry. Other things outside of the industry.
Yes.
So here we're trying to not just look at what the industry is doing, but actually to try and understand what can we bring into the industry that's perhaps trending elsewhere, but is going to disrupt our industry. So we look at models that might be attractive, but not yet used with our competitors or inside our industry. And it's really interesting to learn how some of the bigger businesses have done that in order to disrupt what is going on within their current industry. In terms of the best models, the most popular models, I think that's pretty obvious at the moment. If I use some names, I'll explain them too. So one of the most popular models at the moment is a platform-based business model. Very typical now across some of the big businesses that have risen fast over the last 5 or 10 years. Examples here are Airbnb or Uber, and all they're doing is being a platform to match their customers with their suppliers. And they're matching person A with company B, and in the middle they're taking a bit of profit out of it. And that is a wonderfully scalable business model. The other one most people will be aware of is something called freemium. Often used in web or tech. Some great popular examples of people like LinkedIn or Spotify, where the premium users are paying for the use of those that are using it for free. And again, that tends to be a really good model for people to want to grow fast. Get the freemium, get the free users, and then put in something else that will help people to buy or to convince people to buy and go into that premium model. Two others that are hitting the ground at the moment quite well. People will have seen a vast amounts of elements of customization or personalization. So businesses providing a very personalized or a very customized service. Dell brought that one out in the 1980s, 1990s. Where they got a very good supply chain, a very good logistics model that would help them to be able to build your own laptop effectively to your own specifications. And they really increased their market because of that element of customization. The final one, which we're really keen on, and a lot of startups start in this area, is what we call hyperlocal. So it's when a business launches in a very, very small niche area. So they'll launch in a very small geographic location, and then they'll gradually land and expand outwards. So they get a very good presence in a very small area of London, perhaps, and then they gradually expand out. Once they've got that strong presence, they expand out into other areas. And a great example of that would be the Camden Brewery Company that have done really, really well over the last few years.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. So these are some business models people can look into and see what works well for them, explore all the options and what does it mean for them. And then from there, you can go into pricing models and stuff like this. Once you know how you're going to do this, actually, freemium model is something that was obviously growing over the last few years a lot. And I actually also used, not only for my stuff, but also I bought into a lot of freemium apps, for example, where I was willing to pay the apps. And this, I think, has to do a lot with people need to be convinced first that there's value in what you're offering, and they know what you're talking about, they see the content that you do, and then they buy into, okay, I'm happy to spend money on this, because these days when everything is available somehow, somewhere online, it's a good model maybe also to test the market, maybe to do some free stuff and then test the market before you do that.
And on top of that, it's a great model to look at for investment, because investors will want to have some really good early adopters, some really good numbers around early adoption, and the way to get that sometimes is just simply with freemium.
To show, okay, we have users, we have people who actually use it as well on a regular basis or something. All very great advice. Now, if I'm a startup and I'm all set up, but now I want to grow, do you have some specific tips around growing a startup, when it's the right moment, when it's not the right moment, how to cope with things? Because growing sounds nice, but it comes, I think, with a lot of challenges, because if you all of a sudden have a lot of customers, but you don't have the structure behind it to support this customer base, it's all going to fall down. If you are growing too much and you don't have the processes in place to deal with that kind of growth as well, it's also not going to be good. But maybe there's some specific tips you have around growing as a business.
I think that the key one for us is always, it all has to start with the leader. And the leader has to learn to let go from a very early stage. So that's letting go of their beautiful baby that they have brought up and is gradually growing or rapidly growing, and they have to let go of some of the more operational and day-to-day tasks. So the leader has to be comfortable to delegate, either internally to staff that they've brought in, or externally to consultants or those that are going to help them develop and grow the business. So it has to start with them. I think you're right. Some of the other key areas are there in terms of operations and ensuring that the processes are there. But we've got to remember that small businesses shouldn't be very process heavy. They should be agile enough to pivot at any point, should the market require them to, or should their customers require them to. So I think we've got to be very careful in terms of bringing that very large corporate ethos of process, of complications, to ensure that we can be reactive, be that speedboat rather than that oil tanker. We want to be able to change direction quickly.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I did work for big, large corporations before, where I went mental with all the processes and thought, like, okay, well, why is this taking so long? Because the more processes you have and the more levels of stuff, the longer things take. And yeah, you're right. The startup mentality is to change direction quickly according to the market as well, to survive actually also in the market. But I think to have some quality assurances, some steps in place, and not just played by the ear. This is what I meant by having some processes in place. People then cannot cannot cope with growing. Even if you're growing staff, you need to ensure everyone knows what your company stands for and how you react to certain things and what the ethos is, and to really live that ethos as well, rather than being completely different to what the company stands for. Yeah.
The one thing that we would say is we use something called a Prosper plan, and it starts with getting the company's kind of annual objective going, or a 3-year objective. We start with that. What do you want to achieve in that year, in those 12 months, in that 24 months, in that 36 months? We start with that. If you've got that, then what are the objectives to achieving that? How can we break that down, either horizontally across departments or vertically across teams? From that, we break it down into individual actions. What are you going to actually do, and who is going to actually do it? Who is going to own that task? And from there, you ensure all of your team are going in the same direction, and that is one of the key things.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times overlooked as well, because people create plans and do lovely things, but they don't actually create an action plan to execute what they want to do, and who's actually going to do what at which time. Yeah. And if you don't have that in place, nothing's ever going to happen. Because
well, a lot will happen, but it won't be in the same direction.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay, all great tips. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you would like to share with us that I haven't asked you, or anything about you, or any other tips that you would like to say before we finish?
In terms of tips, I'd probably go, if we go back to starting up, one of the key areas that we work in is this element of startup. So we would probably want to leave people with, I guess, a couple of handy tips. The first is to just ensure that you research and understand who your customers are. Find out what their problems are, and then research what your customers are doing and find out what their weaknesses are.
Yeah.
And the second, I guess, is an often used phrase, but fail fast. Really launch early, fail fast, and let your customers adapt the product or the service as it's launched. Don't strive for perfection. If you strive for perfection, you'll never get there. But also, you might be trying to perfect something that your customers don't want. So I guess 2 top areas for tips to leave you with.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, very good. And you might remember Alex Schusner, one of the other speakers as well. He actually had a phrase which fits very well with what you were just saying. 80% is the new perfect.
Yeah.
So go for 100% and just be always think it's perfect, because maybe you never start, depending on your personality. If you're a perfectionist, this could be a challenge for you to start ever something. And I think this is something that scientific researchers struggle with. It's what I hear is they're researchers and they need to prove and they need everything up always 100%. So if they have a business idea, they just research and never start something unless they have really someone who takes them by the hand and says, okay, let's do this now. But it's just not finished. Yeah, it's finished. Let's test it. Because everything you do is a test and helps you to fail fast if you need to fail. So I completely agree.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well,
if anyone wants to know a lot more about business model innovation, something we've talked about today is there's a wonderful book out there called The Business Model Navigator, and they've got a great 15-minute YouTube article as well for people to look at should they want.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to make sure I link back to that underneath the video, and I'm also going to link back to where they can find more about you. So thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
And I'm looking forward to involve you more in our activities in the future and helping to support you and your business, actually. Thank you so much. Speak to you soon. Bye.
Yep. Bye.